Hi, this is Felipe Flores. Welcome to Data Futurology. Today, we've got a extra special episode. We're going to be speaking with our friends from Talent Insights, who are Australia's leading data analytics and actuarial recruitment. They do excellent work in this space. From the audience, we've heard that at the moment, acquiring talent, managing talent, minimizing attrition are key issues that all leaders are facing. So we're keen to pick the brains of the experts. We've got Pat and Ben joining us today. Guys, how are you doing?
Good, thank you, Felipe. Yeah, great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for making the time. So maybe to start off with, I'll ask you each to tell us about your focus area in the space, and then we can jump into some of the questions. Pat, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the quick explanation is I focus on a lot of the production-oriented data science space, and that kind of includes different profiles, but definitely impactful work for commercial teams, could be scale-ups, big companies, as well as anything related to machine learning engineering and ops and all around that.
Awesome. Super relevant. Ben, how about you?
Yes, I'm in the more on the analytics side, so more general analytics, data analyst roles and insights. So we also cover the digital analytics space. So our clients can be across every industry, every sector, and obviously growing at a rate of knots. It's certainly a busy time.
Yes, right. Like they are key talent to have in the organizations and really help us get a lot of value quickly. So it's a key area to focus on. Thanks so much for making the time today, guys. So I was thinking to kick off, we can discuss what makes a company attractive to the talent that's out there, and how can we get the organizations to be able to have a greater pull, I guess, and a greater sway with people.
Well, I think, for me, definitely there's so many different things. It depends a little bit on, a person's journey and their values, as well as the company and where they're at in their maturity journey and data journey. But one thing that I've been focused on for a while, but I'm really starting to hear a lot more of and have discussions with candidates, is finding impactful work where they can really start to see the outcomes on a real business, bottom line, or customers. That's kind of really coming through in the last kind of 12, 18 months. And, that's awesome for us because a lot of our clients fit that bill, but it's really nice to see. It's not just about, only the technologies or a brand name, for example, like it used to be, or the salary. Yeah, right.
Definitely it used to be more around like what type of toys am I going to be able to play with, and is it going to be shiny and exciting? And I agree, like there's definitely a push to say, like, will I be adding value? What's the track record of this team to be able to deliver value from the organization? Ben, from your side, any other things that you think are working well?
Well, we find that people are really in two camps. So the two camps are people that are looking for a mature data environment, or people that are looking for a very new environment that's being built from scratch. So on the maturity side, they're going to get opportunities to have promotions, maybe more investment in training. There's more colleagues to learn from, and there's the option to potentially move into other teams and get learn other skills and get other roles like data science or engineering, for example. Whereas on the other side, in newer environments, the roles are going to probably be broader, the teams are going to be smaller, so they may get more opportunity to be involved in more areas of growing that team, and that they may have leadership opportunities sooner as that business grows. So we see people are very much in two camps at the moment.
Yeah, that's a really interesting and good distinction. Yeah, I can definitely see that, and the benefits of both, right? Where depending on where people are in their career. And I wanted to ask you guys, where do you see purpose at the moment, and primarily the organizational purpose? I know it's something that I really like about you guys and your approach is that this is an area that you guys focus on. How do you see playing into the recruitment space at the moment?
Yeah, it's definitely come to the fore. And again, we start, the process, I guess, by first understanding our clients. And we're really lucky that we've had some long-term relationships where we've worked with some of our teams for years and years. So we understand where they're coming from. We've seen their journey. And importantly, when we're then having conversations with top talent, lots of people who aren't necessarily, actively seeking or desperate for just any job, there's that extra threshold. So we really need to actually connect it with what's driving them. What are the underlying motivations? Is there a certain purpose or mission that they'd like to be a part of? Where the technical work that they're doing with data then plays a significant strategic role in getting to those outcomes. So yeah, really unpacking it from the client side, having a lot of different opportunities. And what I see in the data science market is often exposing people to things which they didn't really expect, companies they might never have thought of, actually having that kind of underlying purpose, whether it's for good, working with some companies that are doing really unique things in, say, agricultural tech and data, versus marketing, or maybe it's a fintech that is disrupting things, but it's helping out customers. There's so many examples where purpose might not be the initial attraction out there on the banner that's obvious, but it actually helps, get the most qualified and attractive kind of people across.
Yeah, that's really good. And how about from the analytics and the insight side? Do you find, Ben, that people are having those conversations? Are they coming to you with those type of questions, or is it something more that you're raising? How do you see it?
I think it's, particularly after coming through COVID, I think people are really in tune with, what's really important to them. And I think we're starting to have conversations now around, okay, so what's really important for them and their family and their career path. So for us, it's about, we're really, because we've worked with our clients for so long, we know the market really well. We can give them a really honest feedback as to whether that job opportunity is going to offer what they're looking for in terms of lifestyle, work-life balance. So I think that's where it comes in. I think, over the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to be having more of those conversations and trying to help people make the right decisions in terms of the business and the role that they're looking at. But yeah, it's a great time to think about, what, the purpose and why, what motivates them and what business should they join to suit their lifestyle.
That's really good. And sorry to interrupt. I just got excited with how you were saying about the additional areas that people are looking into when considering a role now. So I wanted to ask you if you can elaborate on those. So after COVID, what are some things that might have changed in people's priority when they start looking for roles, things that they might consider now that they didn't before? What should organizations look to be offering more of, essentially?
Well, the big thing is the flexibility piece, and so that's obviously a big one that's not going to go away. Being able to work from different locations is obviously a key one. People also not just recognizing that perhaps they don't want to work for a business that's just, it's all about sales and marketing and generating more revenue. So maybe working for a non-for-profit or for different government organisations. So I think that's what people are having a real think about. It's not just about some people are chasing the dollars, but a lot of people are chasing a role that's gonna fulfil them and give something back. So yeah, it's increasing, people's passion. You're seeing people's passion come out, which is fantastic.
And I do think it's worth mentioning as well, we're starting to now see kind of 2 years into this much broader push towards remote and kind of teams where it is a bit different to what a lot of them had been doing, with face-to-face contact. It's not a case where everyone wants 100% remote work all the time. We are hearing it from the market that quite a lot of people do want to have that component of getting connected to stakeholders to understand their pain points, working with their data peers as well, because a lot of the time it's cross-functional teams in our space, not just one person doing everything. And we've seen some of the negative effects as well of remote, right? A recent example was a candidate of mine who was only in the job for less than 12 months, but it was a fantastic job. There weren't any problems with it, but she was poached and hired by another company. And one of the motivations was, having that closer contact, that extra buy-in from the team, that social connection, and, everything, of course, it had been done to keep her. But it does happen. And I think that's something that data leaders would want to watch out for on the flip side of providing lots of flexibility, that you're also making sure that people are really part of that team and connected to the business that they're actually working with, not just only data peers.
Oh man, that is so true. And this is an area where I know that I've been focusing on, and I know that I've been trying to improve. It's difficult. I think it is a real challenge on getting people that are remote, having them well connected into the work, the organization, the organization more broadly, especially when there is hybrid environments, when there is a or a couple of offices that a lot of people might go into, and then you have people that don't live near these offices. It can be challenging. I know that for me, it's something that I've been working on. And we had at my work, we had a very similar case as you just described, Pat, where we had somebody that started remote. They hadn't come into the office, where we try to get them quite early on to come and visit. And then I think it was within a couple of months, maybe 6 weeks, she moved on. And part of it was like, yes, I didn't really feel as connected to the organization as I could have. So that's definitely a watch point in modern times.
Mm.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys what are some of the things that are driving people away from jobs at the moment? If we think about the reasons why people are thinking, either I've had enough, or I want something different. What are some things that leaders could address to help reduce the attrition and ensure sort of more longevity in roles?
I think a big one that's come up recently that we've been talking about and talking to our clients about with the new financial year coming up is that there's a lot of teams are under resourced because of the talent shortage. It's having a real, there's a lot of pressure on leaders and people within those teams to deliver work. So, we know that some of our clients have been having conversations around stalling projects and sort of, pulling back some of the work from the next financial year to make sure staff aren't over-resourced. And because you've got to be realistic that you can only bring in this market, you can only bring in a certain number of people, over the next quarter, over the next 12 months. So I think that topic is going to really play a part in the planning for next financial year with different businesses. It's a big one at the moment. It's a lot of people feeling, really overwhelmed and overworked and just a bit sort of burnt out from the last couple of years. So it's the next 12 months is a really key time to look after your staff.
Man, I could not agree more. I think there's definitely hiring is a huge challenge. There's a lot of expectation and demands at work. Overworking people is kind of like a very slippery slope. And I think that leads on to another question that I wanted to ask you guys around models of team organization and delivery that can help during these times where we're pressed for talent and for resources. And one of the areas that I've seen is investment in technology, for example. That is one where people are considering having more automation, better documentation, better sort of collaboration software, and increasing the maturity on that front. But obviously, it's not enough, and it's not, and we need a diverse set of solutions to tackle the skills and the talent shortage. So what do you see from your perspective as some different models that people could consider around managing this time and being able to deliver more?
I think in my space, and some of the conversations I have with the more mature teams, who I think have done great jobs of avoiding attrition, keeping their best people, keeping them engaged, long term, and continuing to grow in a competitive market. One thing that they all have in common is they'll have people who really understand the unique skill sets. A data scientist is not the same as any other data scientist generally. There's going to be different profiles and skill sets, which could be around the business side and commercial acumen, could be around some of the engineering and ML ops side, productionizing models, certainly the statistical and analytical kind of side as well. And understanding, the strengths and weaknesses and gaps and opportunities in your team really opens up how you can then keep those people engaged, understanding what opportunities they might be looking for internally before you go and hire someone immediately onto a new project or to do a role that might have been a great promotion for them. Also, it really helps, with one of the biggest things I think avoids attrition, which is hiring well in the first place. Being really open and honest about what the gap is, what your challenges are. As a hiring manager or someone in the interview process, you shouldn't be selling. You never want to oversell. That's the biggest thing data scientists complain about, that the expectations and the actual reality are very different when they get in. And you want to close that gap. And, that's something that I've seen. So really knowing specifically what the person would be doing, what skills are really important. And when you do that, when you understand your team and you've given them opportunities internally, and then you kind of thoughtfully go out to make the next hire, you can really hone in, and pitch the job correctly and know that there's going to be room to support them, the work and the skills around them. And that makes it different. You can open up talent pools that way by kind of, again, looking inwards first before going out to market.
Yeah, I love that approach, giving people internally the opportunity, helping develop them, and focusing kind of on making the best of the talent that you have internally, and then having more clarity when you do look outside. And there's definitely like ongoing conversations there where I've had people, for example, move into a management space for the first time and then realize that it's not for them, and say like, no, I'd much rather be a senior. I want to be more on the tools than what this role allows. But then you have those conversations where the expectation up front during in this particular case, like the expectation up front during the hiring process was, this is a manager role. And he found that, he gave it a good go and we worked through it. And I don't know, maybe a year in, he said, you know what, this is really not for me. I'd much rather be a senior. And we definitely had the need for that. So that sort of worked out well to then being able to go back to the market and hire for the right set of skills and the right person for that role, having almost exhausted the internal talent pool before. So I think that's really good. Ben, from your perspective, any other creative models that people could consider about in getting through a hump of work or this period that is extra demanding and tough to get people in?
I think, to obviously agree with all Pat's thoughts and comments on that. I think that also the teams have been using pools of contract as well. We've obviously seen a big increase in contracting to help with teams and workload in the last 2 to 3 years. I think we've seen a dramatic shift in the way that businesses approach hiring data professionals across analytics and data science. And we're now seeing, probably a 70-30 split in terms of contractors versus permanent staff in some organisations. So I think that is really helping to relieve some of the pressure. I know that some businesses that it's often when you're scaling and you need to scale quickly, you need to be more flexible around different locations and having more contractors coming in. So I think it's been great for the data market in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point. And I think that there's always going to be work that is going to be longer term and become strategic or BAU, and then there'll be other work that is a temporary need or demand, or that the skills don't exist internally, and that they've been extra difficult to get, and you might need them on a short-term basis. So I think that they're kind of two triggers, at least, that I like to think about when to consider contractors. And then so if you have any thoughts on that, let me know. And then additionally, any tips on how to make the best use of contractors while they're engaged with the organization?
Yeah, I guess I've had quite a lot of experience with kind of the data science and machine learning engineering contract market. And, I think you're right. So your example was fantastic, where you might have work which is somewhat short term, or it's actually unknown. Will it extend beyond 6 months? That's a really typical example. We've got a niche piece of work, a model that needs to be built, but you can't necessarily guarantee that there'll be similar types of work in terms of machine learning technicality or analytical kind of depth or skills. And I think a lot of companies in the past that I've worked with, they've been quite traditional and hired permanent. And what we then see is those top talent that they've brought in get to do a great piece of work. And as soon as it's done and switches across into maintenance mode, enhancements, just running the model and updating kind of, data batch every month or whatever it might be, and their next work is somewhat unsuitable. It might be very different and less attractive. They lose engagement, and again, they're talking to their friends, they're talking to people at meetup groups, they're moving on to a new job, 12 months in, and you've done yourself a bit of a disservice. So I think it's definitely, a really wise idea if that's a situation, a key project or product that you're trying to ramp up, considering whether you should actually bring on contractors first. The third major lesson, and some numbers I was just running through them with some of my clients is, we've been seeing really good tenure from our data science contractors. The average tenure is about 12 to 18 months, which is pretty comparable to permanent experienced data scientists already, and we're also seeing a very high conversion rate. And this is small sample size, kind of under 100 in the last year, but around 75% of our data science contractors with some of our clients have been converted across to perm. And they're typically doing anywhere in between kind of, 8 to 12 months on average before they convert to perm. So the tenure is actually fantastic. They've both had a bit of a try before you buy. They're treated just like permanent workers as well. It's not the same as contracting in software or tech.
That's really good. Ben, sorry?
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's a really good point, that businesses that treat contractors like, permanent employees are getting the best out of contractors, and they're part of the team. Gone are the days where contractors were given all the best work. They didn't go to team lunches or go out for drinks at the end of the week. They were, very kind of seen as mercenaries, I guess, chasing dollars. But that's changed, which has been fantastic. Contractors now in most organisations are really valued and are part of the team, and they don't get any. The work isn't more interesting than the permanent employee, which is really good to make sure that you keep everyone engaged.
I remember, now that you say it, I remember those times when contractors would get some of the more exciting work, some of the new things, and I can definitely see the shift now. And on the flip side, like, they're better integrated. Contractors, I think, are better integrated into the permanent teams, which I think is the way to go. So this is really good. Something else that you guys mentioned reminded me that I should ask you about the the team structures and how to organize teams, and what type of models you've seen, that whether you've seen a for example, having a staged process that it can be data engineering and then insights and analytics separate, and then machine learning separate, and then an ops team separate, or are you seeing models that are more sort of cross-functional across those, or cross-functional across the wider organization? What type of team structures are you seeing in the market, and have you seen any shift recently?
Well, I think in my side, I've seen examples of both working. So it really just depends on the situation. Certainly in smaller and mid-sized companies, definitely that kind of cross-functional hybrid model works really well. And again, it comes down to, or the success of this model comes down to really understanding what are the underlying skill sets in your individuals. So if you've got a really awesome team of a small squad of say 3 or 4 data scientists, but a couple of those have very mature skill sets around machine learning ops and some of the engineering to deploy and productionize model, that eases pressure on the data engineers that you need. If you've got people who have exceptional commercial acumen and may have done some kind of product leadership, a lot of that translation with business stakeholders, again, that eases, some of the pressure, say on the manager, or where you might get bottlenecks in much larger organizations where roles can be more specialized into buckets. At the same time, some of my big clients who do have, everything, huge data science teams, machine learning, engineering, separate ops, separate data analyst insights teams, down to verticals and teams in the hundreds, they can be really successful as well. Part of that's going to come down to collaboration, and ownership, and also opening up opportunities to really work together well. Where it doesn't work well, and everyone I think would know these stories in big organizations where there can be some silos or politics, people wanting to compete internally instead of actually work. And I think even with those structures, they're generally working nowadays in agile cross-functional teams. So it's not, a squad of 10 data scientists together. They're going to be distributed. There'll be a, ops kind of skill set, data engineer, a couple of analysts in the team with data scientists as well. And then you've got your capability practice where you actually are building up your skills, looking at research, looking at kind of the broader development professionally.
Yeah, really, really good. How about from your side, Ben? Do you see it differently?
I think, just as Pat said, it really depends on the organisation size, how big the data teams are. We're certainly seeing there's more opportunities for people to be involved in different parts of the business. If you look at smaller tech companies or smaller e-commerce businesses, for example, they're quite attractive because you work on the customer side, but you also get to work on more kind of business and operational problems as well. So I think it really depends what the motivations are from the candidate. But those opportunities are out there if you want to, have experience and get skills in different areas of analytics. And now's a great time to do that. And I think, as Pat mentioned, with Agile, I think certain organisations are doing a really good job with insights teams that can also work, collaborate with data science teams, and they're giving people actually time during the week to work with those teams and understand what those teams do. So I think there's, although it's a very candidate short market at the moment, there's great opportunities out there for people that want to, learn different areas.
Yeah, that's really good. And in terms of maybe focus areas or career progression, have you seen anything unique to the analytics or insights people in terms of where they can go with their career, that sometimes they might want to go more technical and either move into the data science space, but sometimes they can go more business and they can move into product management or product ownership, and anything kind of like on the more business end? Do you see any pathways that are unique to the insights or analytics people?
Yeah, I think traditionally people have thought, okay, my next move, as you mentioned earlier, is a leadership role, and they automatically think they should be working towards a leadership role, even though they may not be suited to being a leader, or they may not enjoy that part of the role. So I think there's been other opportunities to move into more business roles. You mentioned product management. In the last 12 to 18 months, that's been a great area for people with that want to move away from the technical side, but don't want to go and manage, large teams of analytics and insights people. So product management is certainly a great area to move into, and has been growing the last year or so.
Well, that ties in with the trend as well that we were talking about, where companies and candidates and businesses are getting more mature and they're demanding impact and outcomes from data and analytics. It's no longer okay to really go off and do R&D in a company, data science team, take away budget and then produce nothing after 12 months. And so there will be more product manager roles. And I think they're more attractive as well, because people see that that's where, the top talent is gravitating. So I definitely, think you were spot on there, and there'll be more of that. There'll be more of these roles and opportunities created for people to move into slightly different roles still within data.
Yeah. Right. And to be able to leverage all those analytical skills and business liaison skills or stakeholder management, in terms of being able to tell a story and understand what the data is saying, being able to decide on a direction, and then help craft a product. I think it's an exciting space. So I wanted to ask about a couple other topics. So tell me which one you want to jump into first. One of them I wanted to ask you around, what are the type of questions or challenges that leaders come to you guys with? What are the type of conversations that you see leaders wanting to have? Maybe we can do that first, and then we can talk about how does it look from the individual's perspective? So we discussed around the organization, what they can do to be more attractive. We discussed the different models within the team, even team structures. So then we can talk about how the individual can be more attractive to organizations and maximize their chances. But yeah, maybe let's start with the business leader challenges and conversations that they're wanting to have with you guys. What are some of the things the themes there that keep coming up?
I think one that's been really a hot topic for the last year, given how competitive the market is, how difficult it is to kind of get the top talent and secure them and keep them, has been around the interview processes across, data science, analytics, and data engineering roles. It's not the old days anymore, where you can kind of sit back, have an interview panel, and it's one-sided. Where we're offering you a job, you should be thankful and answer all of our questions. It's really pivotal. That the interview process is the biggest source of information to the market about who you are, what you're doing, and your culture and how you do it. And it feeds back through informal challenge, but data people will talk to their friends, and that makes its way out. People are using Glassdoor, LinkedIn, they're talking to headhunters, they're asking more detailed questions and being more selective than ever. So interview process is one. Maybe I can let Ben kind of chat about what hiring leaders are asking in his space around interviews.
Yeah, it does start with the interview process, and what are businesses out there doing to engage people, and where are they having success? And it does start with that interview process and making sure. So our biggest tip is, obviously you be well structured and prepared for that interview, but also if you like the candidate, you need to let them know in that interview. It needs to be a great experience, whether you like them or not. But you also, during that interview process, you need to give them feedback along the way as to, what experience really fits and would add value to that team, what you liked about the answers that they gave. So when they come away from that interview, they're already feeling the engagement, being, I could potentially work for this team. The worst thing that the businesses can do at the moment is have that poker face and just run through 20 questions, and there's no there's no engagement. They then wonder why didn't that person want to come back for a second interview? So I mean, it starts with that. And then there's also just, how the big question is, how are we going to find the people to basically keep up with our business plans for the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And so I think being able to tell the candidate how, whether they're likely to progress essentially to the next stage, telling them as part of the interview, I think it's a really great practice. And there's two other things that I think are kind of like pivotal in the interviewing process. So I'm keen to get your thoughts. One of them is the speed. So sometimes people are taking a bit longer and the candidate is snatched up by another organization. And then the other one is the structure of the interview rounds, where some people have, technical rounds up front, that it could be in person or done kind of like remotely. Then a cultural fit. Sometimes there's like management or meeting the team. So keen to get your thoughts on both of those, on speed of hiring, essentially, of progressing through the stages, and then what should the stages look like, or if you have any tips on the interview stages.
Yeah, I think my quick comment on speed is it certainly helps. It's a competitive market. Best practice in terms of turnaround in between stages is less than 24 hours. So if you've completed an interview, that candidate should know the outcome, whether it's positive, rejection, what the next stages are, actually getting that scheduled in within 24 hours in this market. If there is a real reason, you need to conduct a couple of other interviews, someone's, off sick, which has been happening a lot, that's totally fine. But wherever possible, it's great. And the best example I can think of is, one or two of my clients who have, mature data science practices, and their interviewers will often have detailed feedback for me, as well as the action within, 2 or 3 hours. Inside that interview as well, even when people have been, rejected, they'll actually talk through and spend, 5 to 10 minutes telling them about why they're not a fit right now. And they might have even given them some hints in terms of different courses, resources to go and look at on really niche specific areas of statistics or ML to go and improve on. And that does a world of good for their employer brand. And the chances that that candidate is going to tell their friends nice things about that company, encourage people to apply, and also want to revisit them in the future, 6 months, 12 months down the line. So sorry, that was a bit off topic for speed, but
no, man, it's great, because like I've been surprised at I've been surprised at when people apply for the same company after a period of time, sometimes a year, sometimes a bit longer. And I've noticed that the people that do that, they've taken the feedback from the first round and really improved themselves. And they're also committed either to the organization or to the purpose, or they're interested in the work. And as a result, like when they do come in, they're usually like fantastic resources, because they've shown that growth mindset, that commitment, that their alignment. So I think this is a really important part of the recruitment experience, that regardless of the outcome, you have the opportunity to create a really great relationship. And I think that should be number one. So no, love what you're saying. So sorry, that was on the speed side. Any other thoughts on speed, Ben? Did you?
Yeah, the businesses that are hiring well and efficiently, there's a response straight away from that first submission. 24 hours later, the second interview's booked in. I think there's a real, businesses aren't quite sure when to do the technical test at the moment, because that flips between the first and the second round. I mean, obviously, best practice, if that candidate looks fantastic and looks to have everything or close to everything that the company's looking for, then yes, definitely you should have that first interview before you go to the technical stage. But sometimes, if a company's scaling quickly, you do need to have the technical round done in the first interview. But yes, I think companies are sort of struggling as to where to put that technical stage at the moment.
I think in the data science market, there's, the strong message is that good candidates want to have one stage where there's some personal connection first.
Yeah.
The other thing to remember is that a lot of people, obviously we're a headhunting and recruitment agency, so a lot of people aren't active job seekers. We're talking to them about, again, the underlying motivations, the mission of the team, pitching them on the leaders, the specific people that they're going to work with. So to then have a really incongruent kind of experience where they might be asked to do a, automated tech test as their first stage is quite impersonal. It just doesn't match up. If we've approached them and said, hey, we really want to engage, I think you should meet this team. So I think that's really standard feedback. In general, you'd want to have some personal interaction. And that can be, quite a few of my clients, for example, will hop on, quite a senior manager, head of data science or analytics, and they might have a 20 to 40-minute conversation with the person first to actually introduce themselves, talk them through the team and make sure that there is alignment and actually, understand their personality, their background, and get them interested in the role and confirm, tell them about the reality, what they'll be doing in the first few months. And then it's actually, okay, the candidate's got a great idea of, yes, this does match up exactly with what I was looking for. I'm happy to then commit and, dedicate some time. The other kind of quick feedback on technical tests, because this is definitely the most dangerous / contentious stage for attracting data scientists, is making sure that it's well aligned. And that might mean a bit more time invested in really thinking about it from hire to hire. Hopefully not every single new hire. You want to have some consistency. But, the common negative feedback and where we see candidates dropping out of processes, not completing technical tests and just saying, I'm just going to focus on other opportunities. It's often when there's a bit of a misalignment, and it might be an automated platform or a data science technical test that is very focused on programming or engineering skills, which may not necessarily have been discussed or may not be required. And perhaps that's because it was easier to do an automated measurable test, for example. So I think having intelligent testing that really is reflecting the skills needed, that's also taking into account people's work lives, they're busy, and they might be interviewing and doing 3 other technical tests at any given week. So yeah, it's definitely important. But when it's done right, it's this huge selling point. I've equally heard really good feedback from people who are so much more excited about a company after going through tech testing. They are thinking to themselves, this was intelligent, it was really thoughtful, it was actually really an interesting problem to solve. And I can see that if this is the testing I'm going through, then I know the caliber of the people I'll be working with. And they often would have had, really interesting back and forth and discussions and gotten a snapshot into what life would be like working on that team with and being able to bounce ideas off, having data scientists from different academic backgrounds, commercial backgrounds to work with. And so it can be, a real selling point when done right. So it's not all negative, but just make sure that it's appropriate and well thought out and respectful.
Well, mate, that is, excellent advice. I've made many, many mistakes in recruitment processes, and a lot of them in the technical recruitment, in the technical test. And for example, one that I was doing up until very recently was having the technical test first, up front, first contact with the candidate. Yeah, and as you said, it's definitely not the best approach. But that's one that it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to learn. So these are excellent tips, mate.
Look, it depends.
You're not alone, Felipe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, sorry?
You're not alone. It's
Yeah, exactly.
And honestly,
yeah, no, it's true. Thank you.
It depends on so many things because time is a factor. Not everyone can dedicate a head of data science, to spend 30 hours per week interviewing. That doesn't leave a lot of time for your actual job. And so that's where we've seen it come through. And also companies have recognized that it is good to have a consistent process and they've probably been through, the journey in the last 10 years of interviewing people, taking up time, and finding out that someone was just completely wildly different to what they were expecting based off of a CV, that half of the experience and technical skills, weren't actually commercially embedded and delivered in a good quality environment. They might have, done a really quick project or read a blog about it and decided to put it down and optimize their CV in that regard. But having communication at least, and I'll often have combos and I'll say, look, the process for this company is not ideal. This is why, they're under complete stress and the process actually is great afterwards. The test isn't perfect. They know it. There's some random questions about X, Y, and Z. That's actually not important. They're only going to be focused on, the questions that are really key around Python and Python machine learning kits, around statistics, ML and data science. So focus on those. It won't take you too long. I'll be able to jump on and walk through the results and feedback with you immediately. And if it's positive, then easy days. You're going to be talking to, Bob, Joe Blogs, and, this is his background. He'll be able to kind of answer more questions, and I think you're going to like him. So, managing it appropriately, but wherever possible, have some interaction first before testing.
Yeah, that's really good. Good advice. And managing the expectations through ongoing communication, I think is also key. So that's as you just said. So that's awesome. Thanks, mate. Wanted to also then ask you about the everything that we've discussed. What does it look like from the candidate's perspective? So the individual that's looking to get their next role, look for a different challenge in their career. What are some tips that you guys have on how they should be approaching it, or what they should be considering? Any thoughts from that perspective?
I think a big one at the moment that we're finding is that people are probably not giving it enough time and thought around why they're looking to move, and be really sure about what the motivations are, what kind of role, and not just getting caught up in the talent shortage and trying to jump for the wrong reasons. So I think that's something that we see, and it often results in them making a bad choice or going through a lot of interview rounds and processes, but then actually thinking, I'm not quite sure I really wanted to move in the first place. So I think that the big tip at the moment is at the start of the process, be really clear on why you're looking to look for a new role at the moment.
Yeah, really good advice. I've definitely seen people move either too rashly, or kind of like every job goes through ups and downs, and they sometimes move in the downs, and then I've seen people regret it, and I've seen people want to come back to old jobs or old companies. So it's definitely better to give yourself a bit more time. Pat, were you going to jump in?
Yeah, I think you're right. The data and analytics space is ambiguous, and there's so much hype, there's so much misinformation out there that I think, really asking a lot of questions, getting as much information as you can, good quality information, real information, which isn't necessarily a job ad or a position description, but it's actually engaging. When you're in interviews as well, from the candidate perspective, it is a two-way street. It's not just the company asking you questions to determine if you can do the job. You really have to align those motivations. So again, having clearly thought out what really is the driver and the biggest, most important things for you if you were to move, as Ben was saying, that's really key. And, a lot of the time, an example in data science would be, many people have been working for years in kind of average companies and something's missing. They're not getting to do a lot of impactful production work. And so, again, unpacking and understanding why, what would be really important. Is it about working with top people where they can learn those technical skills? Or is it more from the enjoyment factor and the satisfaction of actually being able to kind of measure what you've done and turn around after, a year in a new business and say, well, actually, I've had this really great impact on the sales team or the marketing team or the finance team or the medical kind of, operations team in terms of what they can do because of the work I've done. So I think, make sure you ask questions and don't be shy. Like, just think about the questions that they're asking in interview. Tell me about the models you've productionized in the last year. Walk me through the impact you've had with customers. Feel free to ask those in polite, fashion to the companies as well. Ask them, what have you guys launched? Do you have any projects that you're really proud of? Can you tell me in a bit more detail, in the next 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, what would I be working on? And you can then start to pick up that real sense of where they're at in terms of analytics maturity, which is reflective of so many other things. The talent that you'd be working with, the stakeholder buy-in for actual data-driven decision-making, understanding the people around you as well. So again, like I'm obviously focused on data scientists, but the same goes with, analysts and insights. Knowing that the data engineers and the machine learning engineers or ops teams are also, strong, talented, bought in, you're working together in cross-functional teams is really important.
Yeah. Do your research. Yeah.
So true. Hey, I love it. Well, gents, that I think is an excellent note to end on. I want to thank you so much for your time, for sharing your knowledge, your experiences, your insights. They're phenomenal, particularly in this market that we're in today. So thank you so much for that. And I know that I'm taking away a lot of learnings from our conversation as always. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks Felipe. That's been a great experience, and thanks for the invite. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Felipe. Catch you soon.